With their backs against the wall and no more rooms for mistakes, JJ Redick and the Lakers will have their toughest task this season in Game 5, and JJ Redick has a plan on how to improve the Lakers' chances. Even with the odds stacked against the Lakers, Redick has a plan to switch things up and shift things in the Lakers' favor, and hopefully, for us Laker fans, get us to a Game 6. What's good? I'm Okechi Apakama, and this is Lakers Digest coming at you with another video. And before we get into everything we have for today's video, I just want to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to get those Laker updates, especially you guys, because we are pushing towards 20,000 subscribers. So each and every one of you guys who subscribe to the channel really help out. Now, with that out of the way, let's hop straight into the topics that we have for you today, as there could be a starting lineup change. So this was kind of put into people's minds at the start, really at Game 4 in the second half, where the Lakers switched up their lineup and took out Jackson Hayes and played that entire five-man group, that grouping of LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Hachimura, Austin Reaves, and Dorian Finney-Smith. They played them the entirety of the second half, and to some mixed reviews out there, but I'll get to that more later on in the video. But as for this change that the Lakers could be going to, JJ Redick was asked about it during practice for the Lakers today, and this is what he said. So JJ Redick was asked about his use of the second lineup and if he'll use that to start Game 5, and he said TBD, or to be determined. And I think it's kind of going to be like an obvious choice here, just with the way that group plays. That is clearly the Lakers' best five-man group, and there has to be ways that those guys play the most that they can in those minutes. But it's also imperative that the rest of the lineup is still built out as well, because we saw there in that second half that the Lakers didn't go to any subs, and you kind of do need to go to subs at different parts in the game to kind of keep guys fresh and not make things a little stagnant in some situations. And some of those guys that are coming off the bench, these are huge energy guys that can help shift momentum in your favor. So I'm talking about guys like Jerry Vanderbilt, guys like Jordan Goodwin, guys like Gabe Vincent, because Gabe Vincent has the ability to hit some shots and change things in your favor. So it is important for JJ Redick to find minutes for those guys, and I do believe that with the restructuring of the starting lineup might change just the way we see the substitution patterns and things of that nature. And then also, since it is a must-win game, we're going to be seeing the stars like Luka and LeBron playing as many minutes as they physically can. So I'm expecting those guys to play somewhere in between 42 and 45 minutes, maybe even more. So we saw LeBron play 46 minutes in Game 4. So there is a very real chance the Lakers are just going to be just throwing everything and the kitchen sink at the T-Wolves. And it is very important because the Lakers cannot have things end up like last year, where they had that last season end in 5 games against the Denver Nuggets. And the same situation is now upon them in this series, though things are a little bit different. And I think things have been a little bit closer here in these series, and that has determined mostly been on the fourth quarter and just some of these lineup situations they have been making. So just start with Jackson Hayes, who has been necessarily just been unplayable here for most of these playoffs. And yes, he did have a solid end to the regular season there, but there was moments where he can really show some of his bad habits, some of the bad fouling, some of the arguing with the refs while he should be going out for a play or something like that. Some of those things can be very detrimental to the Lakers. And there was something that was brought up that I saw online here, saying that Reddick was asked about earlier in the season about how important Jackson Hayes, the lob threat, is to the offensive organization. And when you fast forward to more now, where the Lakers just played in Game 4, and they went to that centerless lineup, and Minnesota was able to blitz the Lakers, and you can do that there in some situations when you don't have that lob threat, because you don't have that immediate rim threat at the rim, somebody to score just right there under the basket. So they're just spaced out to shooters, and you can kind of play 3-on-3, especially with the way the T-Wolves can fly around and play defense with all those athletes they got on the floor. So this shift in perspective kind of changes things, but there are some things the Lakers can do, and that they do have an advantage over the T-Wolves in this situation. And it is in that best five-man group. They did find some really good offense there in that third quarter of fourth of Game 4, and that was due in large part because they were spacing out a guy like Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert, he's a very difficult guy to move out when he's underneath the basket. But when you can have him spacing out to guys like Rui Hachimura or Dorian Finney-Smith when he's hitting his shots, those are guys that can really stretch out Rudy Gobert and really stress the Minnesota defense, because the Lakers were getting everything they want because they had to blitz Luka Doncic because they were afraid of him kind of taking over the game. And so the Lakers were able to work out of that and do a lot of 4 out of 3s and get a lot of really good offense, a lot of open shots, a lot of ball movement, some of the things that you need to generate good offense and help you facilitate those much needed, well played games and to get you a win. So the Lakers have to shift to more of these lines and thinkings if the T-Wolves are going to blitz in some of those situations, or if they do downsides when they do switch, is to be sure to attack the mismatch wherever they have it. And sometimes if you do have a foot speed advantage of a guy at the perimeter, you would take that. But for the Lakers, I think most of the advantage is in the post when they're going against some of those smaller guys. And I'm talking about smaller as in skinnier. So like a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Dalton DiVincenzo, some of these guys who don't have as much strength, they're strong guys. They don't have as much strength when it comes to guarding a guy like Luka Doncic or LeBron James in the post, or even a guy like Hachimura, who has shown some success in the post as well. So those are some things the Lakers can shift to in their way in game 5 to help assure them to get to game 6. But I want to talk about the big thing that everyone was talking about earlier about how Reddick spoke on not resting his players. So as you know by now, the Lakers did not rest any of that 5-man grouping from the entirety of the second half. And to some mixed results, like I said, that third quarter was really great. They played really good basketball. We're getting really good shots. Defense was flying around. And then it seemed like things kind of slowed down there in the fourth quarter. They weren't really getting the offense they were looking at getting. And then some of the extra possessions, which were killing the Lakers in some situations, really let Minnesota get back into the game. And then Anthony Edwards kind of took over from there. So it is very important for the Lakers to have a good rotation now that you have this lineup shift. And when you go away from Jackson Hayes, the lob threat, you kind of have to replace that with some athleticism. And the Lakers still do have athleticism, but just not in the lob threat variety. So these are guys like Jordan Goodwin, guys like Jared Vanderbilt. These are two guys that can definitely rebound for you at different spots of the floor. And there are guys that can switch and defend multiple different positions and just be very helpful to you in that energy standpoint, which is very much needed, especially in the latter parts of the series, which is where we are right now for the Lakers. So if the Lakers are going to be able to do these things, then I do believe they can be in the right spot to fight and go back to Minnesota for a game 6. But they are going to need to do these things around the margins, because this is where a lot of the game is lost for the Los Angeles Lakers. A lot of people have been talking about the fourth quarter. Yes, the Lakers have a lot of fourth quarter struggles, but I think most of their problems lie really at the end of quarters. This is where they kind of just like lose the rope a little bit. Sometimes they'll have like a 10-point lead and then they'll shrink down to like maybe 4 or 5, or maybe they'll have like 7-point lead and then it'll go down to like 3 or 2 points. So there are points in the game that the Lakers have to do better in, and that's where you win on the margins, and that's how you're able to overcome some of these difficulties that the Lakers have been running through here. But just kind of just talk about some more things about with the Los Angeles Lakers, and just that value of that quote unquote death lineup, their best 5-man grouping. And while they had an offensive rating of 106.1, they do have a -6 net rating, and that's also dead last among playoff lineups that has played more than 10 minutes together. Also, it dropped to 80.4 in the fourth quarter. So that best 5-man grouping really kind of falls out of the bottom there in that fourth quarter. And that is due in large part maybe to some tired legs, or maybe some guys not being as mentally focused. Maybe we see tiredness show up as people not running as hard or people not crashing for rebounds. But the first thing to go is generally the mind in some of these situations. So that means, lazy passes here and there, or like bad turnovers and not being able to inbound the basketball, which is problems the Lakers do have. So it is very vital that with this new construction and possibly this new starting lineup that we're going to have, that the Lakers build out a decent enough rotation where they're able to get some guys some rest here or there. Yes, it is the playoffs, and these guys are going to be playing a lot of heavy minutes and very intense minutes, but it's also very important to give these guys a breather or two, especially if they need it. And you have capable guys off the bench that can give you the much needed production. Maybe we see something else in JJ Redick's bag. Maybe we see a Dalton Knecht or something. Something to kind of spice things up for the Lakers, because they need to do everything in their power or their season is going to be over before we know it. All right, that's going to be it for this video, guys, but make sure you guys subscribe. There is still 76% of you who have recently watched our videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel just yet. And if you guys want more of that, like your news, like your updates, trade rumors, game recaps, just every and all things LA Lakers, you guys are going to come right here to Lakers Digest so you don't miss any of that action. All right, I've been your host, Okechi Apakama, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.